Hey, it's Mike Spinelli. It's Road Testament time, and we're talking about NASCAR today. But first, remember to hit us up at Drive on Twitter to let us know what you think, what you want to see, and all that other stuff. You'll notice we've got a giant crowd here today. I'll introduce Leo Parente from Shakedown. Since it's racing, Leo's here. JF from everywhere else. And Matt Hardigree from Jalopnik, who wrote an awesome piece today about NASCAR and Twitter. And we're going to get right to what we're talking about today, which is NASCAR the next Twitter sensation?
Well, after last week, he just got.
No,
I'm making fun.
I'm saying that. I said that for Leo's benefit because Leo is sort of the doubting Thomas.
Well, let's establish what happened. Daytona 500 was rained out. We went to Monday. It was a Monday night race, and they had a Juan Pablo Montoya crashed into the back of one of the jet cars that were cleaning the track or drying the track.
Right.
And the drivers all got out of their cars, and there was like a 2-hour period where everyone was talking about this on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media outlets.
Right. And by the way, I just want to bring it up, and we'll put it up, a tweet that we got during that time by Pierre Bellevaux. Bellevaux, I'm going to say. It's French. French for beautiful view.
That just looks like a scribble, but okay.
I know. No, but this is what he wrote. Is it bad that NASCAR is more interesting when the drivers chill together on the track while tweeting on their iPhones? And the fact is, a lot of us didn't even know that NASCAR drivers brought their phones in the cars with them.
Or hats. Or hats, for that matter.
What do you mean?
They're all wearing hats when they get out of the car.
Well, they have their sponsors' hats they have to wear when the cameras are on.
Hey, Matt. You wrote an article about this.
So let's get to that.
What the hell did you tell us about?
Well, it was a sort of perfect storm last night. As was mentioned earlier, the Daytona 500 was rained out, and everyone made fun of it on Facebook for getting rained out. It got pushed to Monday night. It bumped an episode of House that no one was going to watch anyways. And the thing was fantastic. It was fantastic, great television, because nothing beats unexpected TV. When you're flipping through the channels and you kind of know what to expect, and then you see a gigantic fireball. And then when you see a gigantic fireball, you go, what is happening? I want to know what's happening. And sports like NASCAR and like baseball are, honestly, in F1 too, are better when you have some context. And there's no context for a giant fireball. So all of a sudden, people want to know what's happening. And then Brad Keselowski reaches into his car and pulls out a phone, and he just happened to have a phone with him, which no one else had thought of, and he starts tweeting a photo, sort of the photo heard around the world from his car, and everyone stopped caring about the fireball all of a sudden and started caring that somebody could possibly be tweeting from the track, and it all hell broke loose from there.
So I mean, basically, it's kind of the medium becoming Is it that Twitter brought new people to watch something that was happening that they didn't know what was happening, or is it basically NASCAR Twitter fans already on NASCAR who may have sort of moved away from the screen?
It was probably a culmination, as Matt said. People it's 10 o'clock. There was 2 hours where there was just a giant flame ball on television just being repeated. When you're flipping through the television on a Monday night when most people are not out drinking, they're actually home preparing for the week, a lot of questions are raised.
Well, Matt, what are you saying? Are you saying that that Twitter sort of became a kind of way to keep in touch with a race that wasn't really happening other than the fireball?
Yeah, exactly, because there's really nothing worse than watching any commentator, any sports commentator, but especially NASCAR commentators, try to figure out how to fill 2 hours. And so Twitter really did that for them. And it was one of those great moments, too, where so Keselowski tweets. And I think that he brought in probably, besides NASCAR fans who were probably already watching it, brought in new people who were either NASCAR fans who didn't understand why they needed to use Twitter, and then brought in people like me who honestly did not follow many NASCAR people other than a couple of friends and a couple of reporters that I follow, because I wanted to know what was happening. I was all of a sudden curious. And to sort of back this up, NASCAR PR told me this morning that in that very short period of time, they picked up over 36,000 followers.
Leo, I just want to go to you for a second, because is this something that is a cultural thing where like nerds outside of the NASCAR sphere are getting exposed to NASCAR because of Twitter, because it's the hipster thing to do, or is NASCAR already a Twitter sensation among NASCAR fans?
Wow, I'm not sure how to really
What? Answer the
Answer
damn
that.
question. What do you mean you're not sure?
I've been hanging back like Tony Stewart in a 500-mile race, so I'm going to answer your question with a couple of questions. Matt, what drove you to watch the race? Was it the fire or the Twittering?
It was neither. I was planning to watch the race because it was Monday night and there was nothing else on. However, I had flipped away for a moment to watch something else. And then all of a sudden, Twitter lit up, and I was like, I need to go back. And then I went back, and I saw there was a fireball, and so I kept watching it. But I wouldn't have even known were it not for Twitter jokes about the race. I probably would have even forgotten that the race was on Monday night.
It's like a perfect storm.
So to start,
Monday night.
thank you, George Clooney. I saw that movie too. So to start to answer your question, do we all think that there were NASCAR fans who, let's believe that they're not completely ignorant to things like Twitter and Facebook? Was it NASCAR fans that started to aggravate to this great story of Keselowski talking to them during the downtime? Or were there new young hipsters who were saying, hey, what's this thing going on in some track on fire? Do you think it was bringing NASCAR together and that was bumping their viewership? Or were there truly new people to NASCAR being introduced to the fireball that is racing?
Yeah, no, I think it's mostly the latter because people who are watching a race aren't necessarily going to reach over to their computer and sign up. If we take the NASCAR numbers, 30,000 people. So if all those 30,000 people also added Brad Keselowski, there are still 70,000 people we have to account for who all of a sudden followed this random driver. Now, of course, some of those people are already NASCAR followers. But what happens is, and I know this for a fact because I've talked to people who were like me or like other people, and they saw that people were talking about NASCAR and they wanted to know what was going on, whether they're already racing fans who like F1 or ALMS or World Rally, or they're just normal human beings who hear OMG Fireball, turn on Fox now. They turned it on.
Well, here's a big question. You look at Monday night, and I want to ask you, Matt, because you actually spoke to people at Fox, correct, about the ratings. How were the ratings last night?
I haven't overnight. I haven't spoken to anyone at Fox.
Okay, well, what were the ratings you got from Hollywood Reporter, or wherever it was?
Right, yeah. So the early overnight ratings that came in, and this doesn't include West Coast necessarily, or the numbers aren't as good, so the numbers change a little bit as the day goes on. But basically, it pulled a 7.7 rating, which is fantastic, and it's down from last year's race, which was an 8.2. But last year's race was going up against nothing. There was no football. There was really nothing to watch. Whereas this was going up against some of the most popular programs on television. Hawaii Five-0, 2.5 Men, and all those programs were down, which means that those people had to go somewhere. A very few of them went to go watch The Voice. None of them went to the CW. Basically, where most of these people went, just based on where the numbers are, unless randomly people turned on their television, which is also a possibility. But because CBS numbers were down, these people clearly went to watch the race on Fox. And they heard about it through Facebook, through Twitter, through all sorts of memes, or just flipping the channel and seeing a giant fireball. But the fireball was only there for about 15 minutes. I mean, there were multiple replays, but I think people had to have found out about it elsewhere. It was a huge rating boost. I mean, it was Fox's biggest Monday night since Game 5 of the World Series.
Matt, so, I mean, the ratings actually went up by a whole rating point, right? I mean, it started at like 7.2, and then after the fireball, it was like 8.2 or something like that?
Yeah, it went up a point. It peaked actually during, I think it was between 10 and 10:15, during the whole downtime. So the red flag was the highest viewed point. The racing was actually the lowest viewed point. Ratings went up at the red flag, but they stayed relatively high. Actually, I heard from somewhere that in Charlotte, now Charlotte's of course a hub of NASCAR fans, but there was a 40%, they had a 40% take at 12:30 in the morning of people watching the race in the Charlotte market, which is fantastic. And the great thing that also happened after this race is it took a while to get started, but there were only 40 laps left. It ran tight for a while. There was a wreck, ran tight, there was a wreck, and then there was a green-white checkered, which means they run one lap green, one lap white, and then checkered, and they just keep doing it until they get a winner. So it was just a compressed, 2.5 minutes of racing for people who weren't necessarily racing fans to really latch onto.
Well, that's a good question. Maybe you brought this up early this morning. Maybe NASCAR needs to make these races shorter to keep that attention span.
I mean, shorter
because
races.
This is proving a valid point of how people consume racing. This was kind of, as I said, perfect storm, but it brought all these different elements to the table.
Well, Matt brings up something in his piece, is that like baseball, NASCAR is a very statistic-driven sport. So the more you know about it, the more you get out of it. And so to people who are really into it, and I don't know the percentage of NASCAR fans that are really deeply into the statistics, but among those people, you could make it as long as you want. But, you know, and again, the people that are at the race drinking and eating the bratwurst, they're going to stay there as long as the race is. So now you're talking about a TV audience, and yeah, maybe like watching a train of cars go around the track in one pack. And I know, Leo, you're going to have something to say about this. Maybe that's where you could shorten it, but why? What's up?
Matt,
What's wrong, Leo?
Matt, I think there's nothing wrong.
There's something
Matt,
wrong.
I think there's a lot to what you wrote about that makes sense. And I'll try to keep this as short as possible. I think the moment last night was the 21st century version of Cale Yarborough taking a swing at an Allison brother in a snowstorm on Sunday to make NASCAR take another step up. And the knowledge of using the new medium tools to attract an audience has opened the eyes probably to NASCAR in terms of how to take it beyond the race broadcast, when to show it, maybe the length of time. But all of this, we discovered the data and knowledge of sport. It's all been in there. I think a lot of hipsters are maybe discovering there's a texture beyond just driving in circles. But at the end of the day, it might be all good because it's forcing everyone to rethink. You know, a little known piece is that NASCAR just bought back their internet rights from Turner Broadcasting. And they've got a 5-year plan to get young people to watch NASCAR again. Aggregating all this media is probably going to be part of the plan. And Brad Keselowski is probably their hero du jour because he showed them a path.
Well, you know, by the way, you brought up something we should probably talk about a little bit of what exactly happened. 1979, Donnie Allison and
right.
Cale Yarborough. You dropped
I'm the old guy to know.
No, but you just dropped a reference that people might not be getting. Is that Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison got into a scuffle after an accident.
Fist fight.
Yeah, well,
Fist
it was
fight.
an actual fist fight during 1979, the 1979 Daytona 500 that just happened to go on while the Northeast was in a snowstorm. So people were home with nothing to do, and they turned on the race, and they found this fist fight going on, and it kind of boosted NASCAR in the consciousness of just people who hadn't been watching NASCAR before. And so you're saying that the fireball last night
Is
maybe
the Cale
doing
Yarborough.
fireball plus Twitter is the Cale Yarborough punch.
You know, both instances happened on turn 3 of Daytona, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you just have something
It's
always
turn
happen
3.
on turn 3.
So let's build a racetrack with only turn 3.
Awesome.
Just have something
Just
always
nothing but
happen.
turn
on
Nailed
turn
it.
3.
Someone get Brian France on the phone.
Well, where do we want to go with this?
No, I think it's a completely valid point. It's the first race. So we talked about, NASCAR needing context. Now everyone has bought in on the first big Sprint Cup race of the year, and so now they have a reason to watch the second one. They already know everything that everyone else knows. So we'll see how the ratings do next week. That's the real test.
How does NASCAR take advantage of this? That's the big question. How do they take advantage of a situation like this where they're going to have people like you? Leo's laughing.
My fear is the morning meeting at NASCAR, someone said, you know what, we need to get Danica Patrick an iPhone right now.
Right, because notably absent from the tweeters
That's right.
was Danica
The
Patrick.
story finally was not Danica. We got to fix that.
New rules, everyone must have a cell phone in their car at all times.
Well, although
and it should be running Ustream direct to the web, and done. We're done.
But the serious answer probably is, how do we get the storytelling on the new media to kind of build this momentum or sustain momentum and stories during the race? I feel...
Sure.
Pardon me, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I see there's a couple ways they do this. The first one is to not shoot themselves in the foot. And they did it this morning because technically you're not supposed to have a recording device with you when you're racing a car, and a phone is a recording device. It looked like he had an iPhone, but it was definitely a smartphone. And they specifically said that they are not going to ban this type of activity, which the NFL did. The NFL blacks out players from using Twitter before, during, and after a game. NASCAR said, meh, we're okay. Keep the phones. Do what you want to do. So that's one, not shooting yourself in the foot. The second step is actually reaching out to all the teams and reaching out to the drivers and letting them know how they can do this. Because social media works by bringing people into a larger and larger circle. So every driver already has a circle of people who already follow them. They're diehards. people who already follow them on Twitter, who follow them on Facebook, know that. And when games, races turn on, they ignore it. But now they need to reactivate those people because people are paying attention. They saw the fireball. They want to know what happened. So they need to reach out to their friends, to people on Facebook, sponsors, car companies, NASCAR itself. Everyone needs to take this opportunity to know that they have a week to remind everyone that a race is coming up this weekend and explain to them, provide the context for why this race is important. Why is a race out in the middle of the desert? Why do we suddenly care?
And someone call Kingsford Charcoal right now.
And there has to be a fireball every race. I mean, maybe that's something you work into it, like in the middle, you blow something up and you get people.
Lake Lloyd, Daytona, Lake Lloyd is just on fire the whole race.
That'd be good. Sharks, fire, and someone dig up the body of Fireball Roberts because. And Fireball
Roberts.
500.
I see what you did. Right.
And okay.
Matt, do you think that they're going to actually take those steps that you think they should take?
Yeah, well, they did one today. I mean, by announcing that they weren't going to fine him and by kind of actively encouraging, sort of setting the ground rules for what drivers can do, which is that as long as it's not endangering the safety of anyone on the track or endangering themselves, pretty much every social media thing is okay. And yeah, I think a secondary move is there because NASCAR, not like Jalopnik, for instance, does not publish a lot of NASCAR items not related to Danica Patrick doing weird things. But NASCAR PR reached out to us, and they're reaching out to sort of people who should. There's always groups. There are people who will never watch NASCAR. People are not like cross-watching. Am I going to watch Downton Abbey or am I going to watch NASCAR? Doesn't happen. But there are people like us and people probably in that room there with you who, watch ALMS and watch other motorsports and don't really care that much about NASCAR. And they're getting into it. And I'll give you a great example. Speed Sport Life, great little magazine online, has a great Twitter account. They will stay up for 24 hours tweeting the 24 hours of Le Mans, but they will never tweet a NASCAR race. But they tweeted the Daytona 500 last night. And if NASCAR can engage with them and get them to come back for the next race, they can build new fans for life.
So NASCAR actually reached out to Jalopnik today?
NASCAR
that's
PR
that's a very interesting
We wrote
move.
that story. NASCAR PR said, oh, by the way, we added 36,000 new visitors. And by the way, we were also 7 of the 10 trending topics. Granted, one of them was Tide detergent because that's what they were using to clean the track. But 7 out of 10 last night, which is a fantastic number. So they've figured it out. I don't think they completely know what's going on yet, but they know enough to know to not get in the way of it.
That's good. That's good.
Cool.
I think that's it.
And that's it. Thanks, Matt Hardigree from Jalopnik. JF, Leo, Shakedown on Friday. I don't know what you're going to be talking about.
Nor do I, so tune in.
Okay, cool. And again, hit us up at Drive on Twitter to talk about NASCAR, maybe, or not, or anything else.
Or call us those wankers with
Call
Chris
us,
Harris.
yeah, Chris Harris and the Wankers.
No, we're leaving NASCAR to Jalopnik. They're the new hub for.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks. See you next week.